Come and watch till the end. The interstellar starship Avalon is approaching a habitable planet. Homestead 2. The ship runs alone with vacant cabins. 258 team members and 5,000 visitors are asleep. Asteroids abruptly impair the ship's defenses. The primary shield is powered, but the spacecraft is heading towards a massive alien ship. Asteroid. The rock suddenly hits the ship, creating several issues. The spacecraft repairs itself, but a slumber pod wakes up. Guest Jim Preston, a mechanical specialist, woke up. A machine alerts him when his pod opens. Spent 120 years in suspended animation, and the spacecraft is 4 months near Homestead 2. He is urged to enjoy the ship's luxuries. Jim learns about his ID van, residence, and priorities. Before landing, he gets dressed, exits his cabin, and meets the shipmates, and enters a group-made automated class. The hologram's Earth updates worry Jim. Too numerous, costly, and significant. Jim constantly questioning why he should wait to ask inquiries. He is alone. Since the picture cannot communicate, he searches for others. Reaching the ship's main hall, a self-service information desk is available. The computer connects Jim to a servant when he wishes to converse. He begs to speak to the captain when he arrives alone. He cannot enter the bridge, but can watch what is happening. That the leaders are also asleep. At the telescope, Jim discovers that the spacecraft is 90 years from Homestead. He hurries to the lobby to send a message after waking up too early. He returned to Earth to inquire how to fall asleep. The transmitting equipment says the pricey call to Earth will last around 55 years to reply. Jim suffers. He finds someone at the ship's bar. Talking to the bartender, he appears odd. Jim discovers he is a robot when getting him a drink. It is Arthur. Jim cannot even tell the robot what he wants to know about him. How he arrived early. The following morning, Jim wakes up in his cell and walks to the cantina, where he discovers that most of the food is for gold class. He drinks normal coffee and then attempts to restore his bedroom. He lies down in the pod after getting it to work with all the tools. It doesn't. He then uses his equipment to enter the crew's sleeping quarters. Even that fails. Ship-wide issues occur. Jim frequents the tavern to drink, but largely to chat to Arthur. The robot convinces him to break into a gold class room. Enjoy the ship. Jim plays and watches everything. However, being alone becomes worse with time. He wanders the sleep pods inebriated one day. A spacewalking hatch. Jim suits up and opens the airlock with a handle and button. Exit door. After leaving the ship, the vista is breathtaking. Only he is awake and alert. Jim floats in space depressed after releasing his boots magnets. He removes the outfit and returns to the exit. He presses the button to kill himself, but he rushes away at the last second. Returning home, he falls over a bottle. Jim wakes up and is drawn to Aurora in a pod. He listens to her passenger interview and searches for her files. Loved her. He sat next to her pod listening to her speak afterwards. After returning to the pub, he reads her work and discusses it with Arthur. He keeps thinking about how bizarre it is that he has traveled to another planet to obtain a better life, waking up early and failing, and meeting the lady of his dreams and losing her. Be inaccessible. Jim keeps thinking about her and decides to wake her awake. He discusses it with the robot but does not understand. He will kill her if he wakes her up. Jim first refuses, but he keeps thinking about it. Until his thinking changes. He turns it on at her pod. He conceals and returns to his room when she wakes up and repeats his routine. He later searches the main area for her. She is as puzzled as he was last year. Jim takes her to the lookout and says they are the only ones awake. He informs her he cannot access the crew or ship's primary controls. Aurora panics and wants her pod back. Jim informs them the spacecraft has no special tools. Assists them fall asleep, telling her they are stranded. He encourages her to relax as they just came back to the main area from hibernation. She feels awful for him being alone aboard the ship for almost a year. Jim regrets his actions and returns to the pub. He begs Arthur not to tell Aurora he awakened her. Aurora awakens. She returns to the foyer and asks the electronic information desk about sleep pods. Jim meets her there and they eat. The information desk malfunctions as they depart. Aurora observes Jim having the same breakfast for almost 10 years at the cantina and brings him a gold-class meal. Aurora is not ready, but Jim is. Give up. She searches the hospital, reads research papers, and breaks into the crew's sleeping quarters. Jim detects additional ship issues. Aurora describes Avalon's hardships after some time. She writes, runs about the ship, and swims in the pool, becoming increasingly conscious of her feelings. She talks to Jim in the cantina because she believes his life is interesting. Why did he come to camp? Jim begins with corporate themes and says he aspires to be someone and establish a life on the new globe. Aurora reveals her purpose at the telescope afterwards. She has a round-trip ticket. She planned to spend a year at Homestead 2 before returning to Earth. The first reporter, writing the finest story ever. Jim tries to cheer Aurora up as she gives up on solving their problem. He brings her to dancing, movies, and basketball. He finishes by taking her to the bar to meet Arthur. She feels better but recalls where they are. Jim is alone with the robot and regrets what he'd done to her. Aurora entered the observatory to discover the little Chrysler building he constructed for her after he fiddled with something. A bar date follows. Dinner and life discussion. Her father died while she was little. After supper, Jim helps Aurora put on their spacesuits at the hatch. They spacewalk. Jim may now discuss about that great occurrence. Jim shuts off their boot magnets, and they float in space. Then they kiss. They sleep in his cabin. They then live together. Aurora writes about her ship life in his bedroom. Run, eat, sleep. Jim explores the ship and discovers the plant-growing bay. He gives her flowers. They visit the telescope while the ship passes a red giant. They celebrated Aurora's birthday aboard the ship and then headed to the bar. While Aurora rests, Jim sets up the ring he crafted for her in the bathroom. Arthur chatting. Aurora is told by the robot that Jim purposefully awakened her up. She is shocked to see Jim again. She flees, furious. Jim arrives home to find her items gone. Next day, he meets her at the cantina, but she flees as he talks. Aurora is desperate. She punches and kicks Jim at his residence one night to murder him. Jim apologizes over the radio for what he'd done to her. Aurora rejects his love confession. Killing her will never be forgiven. Jim had another mishap at his residence one night. The ship's primary control shuts off. Later, the elevator malfunctions. Aurora enters the main hall and sees Jim's tree. She then visits the cantina, where the food machine is broken. The deck chief asks who bombed the comms. Thus, they hurry into the hallway with Mancuso in front of Jim's tree. They identify and explain to the head. How 3 pods failed is beyond him. Mancuso leads them to the bridge and discovers the ship experiencing problems. But individuals must manually examine computer specifics. When they depart the bridge, a robot nearly falls on their heads, and they notify Mancuso that ship-wide difficulties are increasing. He advises against it and teaches them how to collect the information. Mancuso examines the pods with Jim. He knows Aurora's pod's fate. Jim's actions disgust the ship's captain. He verifies his data on the bridge with Aurora later. She informs him about her pod, but he cannot help. The topic. Jim brings the 17th damaged robot. Hibernation sickness causes Mancuso to sleep and cough in the morning. Drew blood. Aurora swims to sleep that night. The ship loses gravity, and the water rises, drowning her. She moves with the pool. She survives after turning on the gravity drive. They meet while searching for Mancuso. At the bridge, the 3 are slowly discovering what happened. At sea, Mancuso discovers that 2 years ago, a big machine failed. Because the ship is attempting to move, they must discover and remedy the problem. To complete. Fix that, or the ship will be stranded. Jim and Aurora must take Mancuso to the hospital when he faints as they investigate. He is dying and cannot be saved. Later, Mancuso offers Jim his telescope. After giving them his ID bracelet, he dies. The ship shakes as the lights become a frightening crimson. Jim asks Aurora for aid and they hurry to engineering. Gravity drive failed. Another one that hurts Arthur immediately. Jim switches off. Engineering seeks the issue. Aurora gets swept in as they open the power plant hatch. The rock shattered the hull. Jim is pulled in but clings onto the hatch as it closes. He too is pulled in, but they swiftly shut the opening. After fixing it, Jim notices many hull holes. The rock impacted the reactor. Control machine. Jim believes he can locate replacement components. After replacing the component, the reactor still would not open. Hand doing it does not work. To cool the reactor, Jim goes outside to open the vent door. He gives Aurora Mancuso since he may not return as they depart. She helps him dress and encourages him to return, because she needs him aboard the ship. Aurora returns to the reactor's hazardous heat. Jim approaches the vent as a nuclear bolt strikes her arm. The reactor room heats up as he tries to open the vent door. Unlock it. He learns he must manually open the reactor door to vent. He tells Aurora. He orders her to open the reactor against her disapproval. He tells her they must rescue the others, and she lets the reactor's steam escape. The reactor's gases shatter Jim's connection. His suit pressure is decreasing. Aurora swiftly finds another outfit when he tells her what occurred. Bring him in. She receives another apology. She suits up and flies to fetch him, but her rope is too short. She is dragged back but grabs his leash and pulls him in at the last minute. Aurora pulls Jim to the hospital but finds him dead. She bypasses medication and revives him with Mancuso's band. The medical pod revives Jim by itself. Aurora frees him. Aurora repairs Arthur and appropriately buries Mancuso in space. Jim brings her to the hospital and tells her he can use the medical pod to sleep. He orders her to remain in the pod the rest of the way. Later, she refuses and stays awake on the ship with him. Jim proposes to her aboard the ship, and they live there forever. Avalon returns to Homestead 2 after 88 years. The crew awakens to a strange spacecraft. Aurora sends him a letter recounting her and Jim's ship life while everyone was sleeping. Christine Lucas, 40, wakes up in a strange bedroom with a close-up of her bloodshot eye. She is lost and unaware of her surroundings. A middle-aged man sleeps close to her. She sees her elder self on the bathroom wall. Ben, your husband, is scrawled on the image of the guy sleeping next to her. Nothing's familiar. Ben, her spouse, introduces himself in the bedroom. Longtime partners. He informs her that she had a catastrophic vehicle accident 10 years ago that damaged her brain. She forgets everything before bed. The next morning, she has no memories of her life since her early 20s. Ben has the same morning routine. He shows Christine images and tells her about meeting and marrying. Ben prepares to teach at a local school. While Christine inspects the home, neurologist Dr. Nash calls. He says he has helped her for years. He advises her to find a hidden video camera in her closet. Dr. Nash tells Christine not to inform Ben about the camera. He instructs her to watch the films and call him. Christine watches her video journal for the first time. She had a lengthy flashback to demonstrate what she learned from her 2-week video journal. Dr. Nash informs her that her spouse does not know she has been visiting him for a while. He assists her with her ailment. After being assaulted and left for dead outside an airport hotel 10 years ago, Dr. Nash lost her memories. She is clueless. Her husband Ben reported a car collision. Ben's fib about her memory loss baffles her. Dr. Nash suggests that maybe it is simpler. Dr. Nash then returns her to the assault site to assist her recall. The airport found her. Her finder claims it occurred long ago. She was naked and drenched in blood. She wonders why she is staying at a hotel, which Dr. Nash interprets as an affair. The medical examination proved she did nothing sexual before the assault. She recorded her findings at home that night. She remembers her hotel assault in her sleep. Dr. Nash presents her images tomorrow. Some were random, others from her file. One image excites the brain. A red-haired Claire. At home, she asks Ben. Ben tells her that Claire was her closest friend, but after the accident, she went overseas and stopped communicating with Christine. Ben then gets her photos of him with Claire, saying he kept them from her to protect her. The next day, Christine recalls her son. Ben angers her by hiding their child. To her amazement, he informs her that Adam, their 8-year-old son, died of meningitis. He kept these secrets from her to spare her the sorrow at that time. After that, she writes about these unpleasant discoveries while sobbing. Christine cannot sleep because of baby Adam. Adam shows Christine a sketch of a scarred man in a bizarre dream triggered by these recollections. Picture says Mike. She informs Dr. Nash the following morning that she believes Mike was her lover and attacker. Nash comforts her with embraces and kisses. However, opening his jacket reveals his hospital ID and entire name: Mike Nash. Nash attacks her in a hotel fantasy. Christine flees from him immediately. He captures her, makes her fall asleep, and sends her home. Her phone rings in the afternoon. It is Nash. He tells her he gave her a mild sleep aid to make her feel better. He informs her that her confabulation made him appear like the guy who injured her. The next day, Christine visits Dr. Nash. He likes her, which is unprofessional. Dr. Nash surprises her before they part. Ben divorced her in 2009 but left her in an assisted living home in 2007. Her closest friend Claire also tried to reach her at the nursing home. Nash provides Claire's number. Christine is furious and asks her husband why he left 4 years ago. She wants answers. After their child died, he broke up with his wife and placed her in a nursing home. He returned to her after reconsidering. He promises to never abandon her. Christine gets his job and hugs him since she knows this. Later, Christine called Claire. Claire's comments bring back memories of her and Claire. They meet at a neighboring park. Claire says that Christine was having an affair before she was assaulted and that they met at hotels. Claire then explains their breakup. Ben, Christine's husband, and Claire had one sexual experience since Christine's memory loss made them unhappy. Claire stopped communicating with Christine to preserve Ben and Christine's marriage. She avoided them too. She apologizes. Ben writes Christine. Ben emailed this before they split. He requested that Claire deliver it to Christine as she recovered sufficiently to read it. In the letter, Ben says he loves Christine but had to place her in a care facility due to her predicament. She's seen content. He left because of Adam. Adam feared her because he could not understand why she could not recall. Ben urges her to realize that they left her for Adam's sake. After reading this letter, Christine understands how difficult Ben finds her forgetfulness. Christine thanks Ben via video. In the video, she calls Ben her boyfriend and protector and wants to spend her life with him. She shows Ben her digital camera videos at night and tells him she has been seeing Dr. Nash for a long time. She now totally trusts Ben. Ben becomes enraged and accuses Christine of cheating on Nash. He smacks Christine and leaves. Christine phone tells Claire what occurred. Claire is puzzled since she knows Ben is a wonderful guy who would never beat her. Claire calls Ben. Claire contacts Christine again. She informs Christine Ben that she has not seen her in 4 years. Claire asks Christine whether Ben has a right side scar. She notices Ben has no scar in a photo. They realize she is not with Ben. Fake wedding photo. Ben knocks Christine unconscious as she attempts to leave. Christine remembers nothing the following morning. She discovers the camera and reads her post, saying she loves Ben and wants to spend her life with him. Ben contacts Christine to prepare for a vacation that night. Ben brings her to a nearby motel. She sees flashes of 10 years ago in the hotel room. He says he is Mike, her cheater. Christine recalls refusing Mike's request to inform Ben about their romance. Mike brutally beat Christine, erasing her memories. He informs Christine's son Adam that he is alive by mistake. After assuring Christine he loves her, Mike deletes Christine's camera footage and quits playing Ben. Christine must live with him or die. Christine knocks down Mike and escapes in another battle. She activates the fire alarm as she flees the hotel. She tells her tale while waiting for an ambulance. Nash visits Christine, but not as her counselor. He informs her Mike, who got her ill, was captured. He informs Christine that she has guests and believes they will assist her in improving. Christine's Ben visits. Adam survived meningitis. Adam entering her room brings back memories. The movie concludes with them hugging and shedding happy tears.
This girl finds a computer virus that kills humans, but instantly enjoys it when Isabel Stone and 4 university pals appear next. Tim and Maddie are drinking at a busy pub. Everyone is having fun except Maddie, who worries about her computer geek boyfriend Josh, who has been gone for a week. Isabel worries and proposes moving on from Josh. Tim, who likes Maddie, offers to accompany her home, which she politely rejects since he's only a buddy. Maddie checks her voicemails when when she gets home, including one from her mother and one from Josh. The second message is empty. Josh calls her name and hangs up. Maddie worries and calls him back, but he doesn't answer that night. Maddie can't sleep, so she checks on her roommate, Isabel, but she's gone. She is sleeping with a stranger at his house. Maddie texts Isabel to come home the next day after college courses. Matt visits Josh's residence to check on him. She knocks on the door, but gets no answer. After finding a spare key above the door, she may enter immediately. She finds the place in disarray, with the computer code running. Josh leaves, but he seems altered, not himself. Matthew wonders where he was and why he didn't answer the phone. Instead of replying, he wraps up an Ethernet cord and goes into a room, ordering her to wait in the kitchen. She discovers Josh's kitten starving in a cupboard while waiting. After the tragedy, Maddie runs to ask Josh what's wrong, but to her horror, he has done the unimaginable by utilizing the Ethernet wire. Due to emotional distress, Maddie gets therapy from a doctor. She sobs throughout one session for not preventing Josh's awful destiny. The doctor assures her that it's not her fault and that Josh may have buried his loneliness for a long time. Later that day, Maddie's friends sent her encouraging notes via a group chat. They are surprised when Josh, his account, asks for aid. The four pals discuss this weird event on campus the following day. They then suspect Josh's PC is on and a virus is sending the messages. Stone logs off the computer at Josh's residence. Stone visits Josh's scary residence after courses and is horrified. He sees a pale woman panickingly approaching from the wall. Stone attempts to hide beneath the bed, but the ghostly monster consumes his soul. Like Josh's case, Maddie called Stone the following day to see whether he had turned off the computer. As predicted, the possessed Stone seldom calls. Maddie visits Josh's residence to take action. Disturbed by the scenario, she finds the landlady cleaning and emptying the property. Maddie inquires about the computer, but the landlady informs him that it was sold due to Josh's unpaid rent for many months. Despite this, Maddie finds and visits the computer's buyer, Dex McCarthy. He sent weird messages on her boyfriend's computer, she says. Dex confusedly shows her that he hadn't even connected the computer, leaving Maddie confused as she leaves to figure out what she said. After connecting the computer, Dax later sees a series of strange films. One video shows Josh shooting himself. Maddie is unnerved when Dex calls her and gives her the disturbing film. Maddie gets Josh's gift 2 days before his death at college a few days later. Inside, she discovers rolls of red tape and a letter from Josh, suggesting they keep them out, adding to the mystery and uncertainty. Maddie starts having frightening dreams, images of evil ghosts as time goes on. People doing the unimaginable in front of her also bother her. These events make her think evil is after her. Her physician rejects her assertions as hallucinations when she sees him. Maddie keeps her schedule and attends college to accept this explanation. She detects a strange tendency. The university is emptying as students leave. When Maddie hears unusual sounds in the toilet, she investigates. She runs in terror as she sees someone looking through a restroom door. After many days without a call, Tim visits Stone in the following scene. Tim enters his flat to find him crying and sobbing. Before Tim can respond, Stone is inexplicably drawn in and engulfed by the wall, leaving a black trace. Tim panics and hurries home to red tape the doors and windows. After covering everything, he peers through the door peephole and a large-mouthed humanoid assaults him. Matt's PC goes on and plays odd films the same night. Fearful, she disconnects all computer cords, yet the printer prints graphics. After assembling the printed parts, she sees a fuzzy face. Panicked, she walks to the access point to report her discoveries. He shows her what Josh sent Douglas through video. They discover that Josh hacked Douglas's computer and accidentally released a virus that created a doorway between the living and the dead. Josh also built a counter-program and planned to meet Douglas at the library to solve this. The creature caught him before he could act. Dex discovers Josh's counter software in the PC case, disguised with red tape. Just as Isabel is about to do her laundry, the lights flicker and the washing machine door opens, releasing the clothing. She approaches to inspect and potentially gets trapped. Spider-like thing appears and drains the saw from her, horrifying her. After returning home that night, Maddie finds her roommate Isabel afflicted by the demonic. Just then, Isabel turns to Ash, advising Maddie that the thing would soon claim her, fearful and desperate. Maddie calls Dex, who quickly picks her up. Dex believes he found Douglas's location, and they headed there together. The city is in apocalyptic disorder, with damaged cars and dread everywhere. They also meet a family that tells them to go to a less technologically advanced place, since the monsters are coming from computers. However, Maddie and Dex are determined to shut down the system and halt the chaos. They arrive at Douglas' place to find his room wrapped in red tape. Douglas emerges from a closet and immediately tapes the door. The pair begs to know what's happening, fearing ghosts may enter. Douglas explains the beginning. He says Josh and his telecom team identify frequencies no one knew existed. They expanded those frequencies, unwittingly letting souls from another dimension infiltrate the living world. Douglas also claims that these ghosts make individuals murder themselves by stealing their will to life. After understanding this, Maddie Index understood they needed to install Josh's counter application in the university building's basement server computer to halt it. After gathering this information, Dex and Maddie go to the server room. After arriving at the institution, a terrifying army of cyberbeings stalks them as they go to the basement via the hallways. Spirits follow them. Dex holds the door and encourages Maddie to use the elevator. He attempts to catch up as she enters. Maddie must go alone because of similar ghosts. Power goes out as the elevator descends to the basement, stopping it. Maddie escapes the stopped elevator and enters the server room. One of the cyber ghosts approaches her gently. She is then enveloped by phantom arms that appear to want to swallow her. Dex saves her and warns her not to stare into the spirit's face just before she seems to die. Dex installs the counter application on the primary computer. This crashes the system, vanishing spirits temporarily. The ghosts return minutes later as the machine reboots, forcing Maddie Index to drive away from the city. After a long trip, they stop to relax. Soon after, the army wakes them up with a radio broadcast proclaiming safe zones without internet, mobile phones, or TVs. They are ambushed by a four-armed humanoid before they can respond to the news. Despite this fierce encounter, Dex starts the vehicle and drives to a low-signal region, leaving the spirit behind. The movie closes with Maddie's voiceover musing on their new situation as they reach a secure zone. We can't return. The cities are there. We live differently today. The things supposed to unite us instead linked us to inconceivable powers. The old world is gone. The desire to live endures.